An experienced, well-trained gun owner with a powerful sense of justice allows his ego to override his common sense. Was his decision to draw and engage the right decision? Stop the Threat starts now. Hello and welcome to Stop the Threat. My name is James Toll. On today's episode, we're taking you to Houston, Texas. An experienced gun owner, leaving the range, spots someone trying to break into his car. We call this one Bad Idea. Now let me introduce you to this week's panel. Don Clark, former special agent in charge at FBI Houston. Don has supervised many high-profile cases, and it's a pleasure to have him with us. Kathy Jackson, author, and recently became training director for A Girl and A Gun, A Woman's Shooting League. And Marc MacYoung, author of In the Name of Self-Defense. Marc is also a court-recognized expert on cases involving violence. Thank you all for being here. Let me start this off with an email from Timothy. Timothy writes in, and I'll try to read this for you. What he is getting from the reenactments is, let the criminal run loose. Stay in your house terrified because you don't know if the perp is armed or not. He's not happy with that, and that's the message that he's getting from the show. Anyone want to address that? Kathy?
Just because you're staying out of trouble does not mean you are terrified. It means you're smart.
Okay.
That's
fight smart.
We're fight smarter, not harder.
Right.
When, you know, there's that email that goes around, I've probably received it 6 dozen times in the past year. First rule of a gunfight is?
Don't be there.
Yeah, that's the second rule.
Oh, okay. Bring friends with guns.
Right, that's it. That first rule of the gunfight is have a gun. Second rule is bring all your friends with guns. Mm-hmm. When we call for backup,
right,
that is in fact what we're doing.
Let me springboard on that.
Yes.
All right, it has been 16 years since I was last shot at. I have never gone so long in my entire life without somebody trying to kill me. Now, speaking as a professional, I can tell you, being in those situations, we don't want to be there, right? We do not want to actively go out and chase problems because we know as professionals and calling in, even with help and calling, doing everything correct, we can still die.
Okay, good.
You know,
Don?
you have to know your ability, you know, and you got to know your ability, and you got to know what your family is capable of doing as well. Whether you got little kids, whether you got big ones, or whatever the case may be. I mean, you got to know that, and that's something you should know. I mean, you live there.
Right.
So you just can't go and say, I'm going to go and do this when you've got little kids in the house, your wife and your family and so forth. And if you add on to that, I'm not really too sure about a gun, but I'm going to put it out there and hope I don't have to pull the trigger. That's
yeah,
ridiculous.
I think you're right. And I think another way of saying that is that if you're going to have a weapon, this is a huge responsibility.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Be aware of what you're doing. We'll be right back, and I'll show you part 1. Welcome back to Stop the Threat. We're going to take you to Houston, Texas, where an individual leaving the gun range sees his car is being broken into. We call it Bad Idea. I'm going to show you part 1.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Okay, I wanted to stop that right there because I want to start this out by saying, is this a draw or retreat situation coming up?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It is.
That really is a tough one, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself now, do I run over there and start yelling, hey, what the heck are you doing there? Get away from my car, or so on and so forth. I can't see on the other side whether he's got a gun or something. That's a tough one, you know. My logic wants to tell me that, okay, at least yell, get away from my car, get away from my car, that type of thing, and hope that that might go. Especially if you don't have any opportunity to protect yourself, and that means by having a gun or somebody else with you or whatever the case may be. That's where I would go with.
Okay, we know that the individual's a good shot. Okay, obviously he's trained, he's confident with his weapon. He's now come into the street. He sees someone attempting to break into his car. I want to say it was kind of stupid to leave that stuff on the seat of his car, but I don't want to go there yet. What do you think?
As long as we're talking stupid, I think it takes a special kind of stupid to break into a car at the gun range.
Good point.
I think that's why we called it bad idea.
Right.
As far as whether this is a draw or retreat situation, I'm going to say neither.
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 Okay.
Neither.
This is a stay where it's safe, holler across the parking lot, or pull out your handy-dandy cell phone and start taking pictures, or pull out the handy-dandy cell phone and start taking pictures while shouting at the dude to get away from your car.
Okay, so all those things are alternatives to drawing the weapon.
Right.
So I'm going to call that retreat.
That's not
No.
retreat.
Well,
retreat.
if you have a choice, I'm going to call it retreat rather than draw.
This is not a deadly force
Okay,
situation.
all right. Okay, that's fine.
That
Not
one
yet.
is, and I'm going to have to go, she stole my thunder, because that's exactly my response is neither. You're looking at options that you have to protect your property. The safety, we talked on a show a few weeks ago about the problem of closing the range with a gun, right? Getting close, a gun's a distance weapon, right? So you can control the situation, and really all you need him to do is get away from your car. So standing back and yelling, hey, get away from my car, and hold up your cell phone, I'm calling the cops, right? That could have caused him to scatter right then and there. It didn't need to go beyond that. If the guy's willing to withdraw and there's no damage, who cares?
I'm good with all those alternatives. Don?
Yeah. I just wanted to make one point, that it would have been senseless for the guy seeing somebody at the car to start running towards the car.
Right.
If they
Yes.
didn't,
Right.
if he himself didn't have a weapon,
Right.
that would have been bad, even if he had a weapon,
Right.
and he really doesn't know what the other guy has.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I like the voice intimidation thing. Again, I have a viewer, Walt, who's going to email me about this, that voice intimidation is, in fact, so close to the top of the things that you need to accomplish as a gun owner, because you can control so much. In this particular case, I think what you said, hollering at the guy and telling him, I have a gun, I'm calling the cops, I think that would have a lot to do with it. Now, I've only got a little 2 minutes left, but go ahead.
Same thing. It's not just voice intimidation, it's communication.
Right.
Giving him a reason to leave. Hey, get away. I've called the cops. Give him reason. Communicate to him as well as intimidate him.
And as far as intimidating him, the voice that you use is not begging or whiny or fearful. The voice that you use is the voice you use to tell the dog to get out of the garbage.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's the voice.
Right, and that, unfortunately, not everyone has that voice, but
You can develop it.
But
Yes.
yeah, you need to be firm and loud. And when we come back, I'll show you part 2, and we'll see what happened. Don't go away. Okay, welcome back, folks. We've seen part one of what we refer to as bad idea, and I think we'll all agree it is a bad idea. I want to show you part two. Things don't seem to get any better.
Hey! Hey! Get away from my car! Come on!
Whoa.
Oh, God, I think he shot me.
Oh, God.
Yeah. No, I'd like to report a shooting.
Yeah, you know, there's so many things wrong with this. You know, there's so many things wrong with this. I mean, here we are in a parking lot. We can see vehicles moving. He didn't know who that car was coming in front of him. I mean, okay, I'll give him credit in a tactical situation. He advanced on the enemy firing. I'm okay with that if you're in the battlefield, not the parking lot.
Right.
Anyone want to start with this?
Let me start with this. You must be able to articulate how your life was in danger at the moment you pull the trigger. Yes. The worst of the bad ideas that happened in this video, or that happened in this reenactment, because he could not articulate how his life was in danger at that moment, because in fact his life was not in danger at that moment.
Right. And
that's where I'm going to stay.
Let's also remember that, yes, okay, Texas is different if this is supposed to have happened in Texas. You can use lethal force to protect property. But one thing that is the same anywhere you are is every bullet comes with a lawyer attached. And there was entirely too much wildfire going on there.
Okay, Don?
Well, the other thing is very simple, you know, and I think Kathy kind of said, you know, got around to saying something about it as well, is that why not just kind of stoop down and use the phone? He took his phone out while he's standing up there, right in the middle of daylight. He didn't know if the guy had a gun or not. Why not just get behind something and call the police real quickly? 911, real quickly, you know, and it probably would have been there before the guy even moved.
Yeah, who knows? In that situation, in a city, you know, there could have been law enforcement a block away. I mean, I would rather do that than to start shooting into a crowded parking lot. I mean, come on. This is not rational thinking. This is, and I'm not going to call it a hero complex, this is a zealot. This is a guy who has a gun, who worries me. In fact, I'm afraid of this guy because I think he endangers more people than he's ever going to save. Okay,
he's itching to use it.
Line there.
No, he's itching to use the gun. Now, realistically, because nothing happened, there was no busted window, there was nothing else. Basically, that story is going to get changed. That, you know, I was walking by, my friend was coming, and this guy just came out of the thing and started shooting at me. He capped my friend.
Yeah, that will be the story from the bad guy.
And all they've got is the dude with the bullet wound, which, and by the way, just for a total, he loaded gun coming off the range. I don't know any range master that's going to be happy with that.
If it was his concealed weapon, which I think it was, then he reloaded it and put it in a concealed position as he was leaving the range.
Is, okay.
I do not allow anybody to leave my range when I've been teaching a class. I will not allow them to leave my range with an unloaded gun in a holster. They can either load it and put it in a concealed holster.
The holster's fine, okay. It's a little different where I'm from.
Or unloaded and in a boxer bag. But
Okay.
I just want to say that I think that at some point in time that we have to realize that the gun is not always the savior of these issues. It wasn't that situation, and it's not in a lot of these situations, but we've become such users. We're not anti-gun, but it's appropriately used, and that's not the right way to do it the way what he was trying to do.
No, I don't think any of us are anti-gun, nor do we want to look that way.
No.
But there is some common sense here.
Yeah.
And that guy scares me.
Yes.
He just definitely scares me. I don't want to be around that guy on the range or anywhere else.
That's right.
That kind of thinking, I mean, I'm not even sure as instructors, such as yourself, you would allow that person to be in a class very long.
I wouldn't be happy with him, I'll tell you that. Let me back it up a little bit. I think it's hugely important to talk about what our goals are whenever we decide to do something that is particularly life-changing.
Yeah.
Choosing to carry a gun is a life-changing decision.
Yes.
Because little ways and big ways, it changes your lifestyle. When you make that decision, you have to think about, what am I trying to accomplish by doing this? If your goal is to go out, fight crime, stop the bad guys in your neighborhood, it might be that carrying a gun as a private citizen is not the way to accomplish that goal. If your goal is to protect your life and the lives of people you love, that's what the firearm is for. It's not for the purpose of stopping crime. It's not for vengeance. It's not for justice. It's only about survival, period.
And I do think this is one of the mistakes that can be made as a legal license permit gun holder.
Yes.
Don't allow yourself to become law enforcement unless you are law enforcement. I've got 30 seconds. Anybody want to say anything?
I will. Because what we're talking about here is the very thing people complain, oh, you're telling me to run away, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, that's the other side of the coin. The reason we say that, the reason we have to stress again and again, don't do this, is there are so many people who want to do it.
Right. Right. And I think they're emboldened because they have the weapon, and that is a dangerous situation. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. This is one of the more difficult reenactments we've done because there are so many things here that just don't sit right for us. And we're not anti-gun by any means, but this was just went wrong from the moment he walked out of the range, as far as I'm concerned. Anybody want to elaborate any further on that? Okay.
Let's talk about being more willing to protect your ego than you are to protect your life.
All right.
If the purpose of the firearm is to protect your life, then the firearm shouldn't be coming out simply to protect other things. Because anytime the firearm comes into play, you've just introduced deadly force that's going to make the situation deadly dangerous for you as well as for the attacker.
Right.
And in this case, there was no attacker.
Right.
It was simply a matter of this guy very likely had a self-image that said, I can't allow this to happen in my world on my watch. God bless him for that. That's a good self-image to have.
Not when you're shooting.
But
When it is within the role that society accepts and demands that a person can
he
play.
put so many people in jeopardy with his actions.
Right.
That when it comes to the law, he's going to have a lot to explain.
He is.
I mean, it did take place in Houston. I will tell you, he was not arrested, but it was just.
Anywhere else he would.
Am I crazy?
No, you're not. No, you're not. You know, the truth of the matter is that some people don't need a gun license. You know, and I know they have these different kinds of tests and so forth, but maybe they have to kind of look at that a little bit more too about individuals. And I know
Don,
that
you cannot test for stupid.
well, you can't.
Oh yeah,
You can test for it. You can test for it, and maybe that's what we need to try to do is test on that, because sometimes, and it's egos and some of the other things that go on into an individual's mind that causes them to get not only themselves but to get in trouble with others as well and get innocent citizens harmed.
Right.
This is a shopping plaza there.
Exactly.
And you're standing back there 20 yards or so with a gun, get behind something. I mean, it's just
there were so many mistakes that went wrong there.
Absolutely.
You're in a parking lot. You're a responsible, armed citizen. You're trying to protect your property. But is that the time to start firing wildly into a parking lot?
That's
no.
right.
And I'm going to bounce something or off something you said, which is, you know, you're saying we're not anti-gun. No, we're not anti-gun, but we are definitely pro-responsibility.
Right.
And that's the message. If anybody wants to take a message out from these shows, take pro-responsibility.
Okay, yeah, I like that a lot. We've got just a few.
Responsibility is definitely a big thing. I'm going to say learn the rules of the road. It would not be responsible for a driver to get behind the wheel without knowing the traffic laws. It is not responsible for an armed citizen to get behind the trigger of a gun without knowing the deadly force laws.
Yeah, and I think just one thing. I think that the countrywide, I know states, you know, want their own say-so about everything, but I think countrywide with these gun things that there ought to be a consistent policy over the country as to how you go about getting these guns and carrying them and so forth, because there are a lot of people that may not be insane, but they don't need to have a gun.
True. And in many of the reenactments we talk about, they don't have enough training.
Yes.
In this one, I would almost say he was overtrained.
Wrong type of training.
Wrong type.
Right, he was over specialized in his training.
Okay. We got to go. I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Send me an email. I know I'm going to get some on this one. Be safe, be trained, be alert.